Good afternoon, and welcome to today's reading and performance by the poet Anne Waldman. My name is Srikanth Reddy, and I'm an assistant professor in the English department here at the University of Chicago. I also coordinate the university's poetry reading series, Poem Present, which is co-sponsoring today's event in collaboration with the Chicago Humanities Festival. I'd like to thank the university and the Riva and David Logan Center for the Arts for partnering with the Chicago Humanities Festival to make these events possible during the Hyde Park Day of their program calendar. And I'd also like to thank CHF members and the Charter Humanist Circle for their generous support. Can you all hear me? Okay. Introducing Anne Waldman, you can't help feeling kind of like one of those amateur photographers who film tornadoes and send the footage to CNN or the Weather Channel. You're frozen to the spot by the wonder, mystery, and mind-boggling force of what you're witnessing, but you'd also be well advised to get out of the way as quickly as possible. So I'll keep my remarks brief and begin by reminding you to please turn off your cell phones. From what I've heard about Waldman's performances, you probably won't be able to hear them ringing once things really start rolling anyway. Anne Waldman is the author of some 40 books of poetry, including classics like Marriage, a Sentence, Structure of the World Compared to a Bubble, Outrider, and most recently, Manatee Humanity. Last year, Coffeehouse Press published her breathtaking sequence, the Iovis Trilogy, which brings to completion a 25-year-long project of epic proportions, dealing with war, sexuality, theology, and poetics, all the while bringing us to newer levels of intimacy and awe in relation to Waldman's extraordinary literary consciousness. Waldman is often described as shamanistic, wild, and subversive, all of it which is most certainly true. But she's also one of the most personal and philosophical poets at work in the language today. A recipient of the Shelley Memorial Award from the Poetry Society of America and a chancellor of the Academy of American Poets, Waldman is the co-founder of the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics, one of the world's great centers for the study of literary innovation and the intersection of poetry with a vibrant social practice. She travels the world like a benevolent weather system, from Berlin to Beijing, Nicaragua to Vienna, as an ambassador not only of contemporary American poetry, but also as a spokesperson for a global poetics of nonviolence and communal understanding. She is a luminous reminder to those of us in the ivory tower that poetry is a form of cultural activism and always has been since the origins of the art. But you'll see that for yourselves very soon. Please join me in welcoming Anne Waldman.
Thank you so much for that generous introduction, and this is such an extraordinary room. What a great honor to read in this new interactive art center. It's quite extraordinary. You're very lucky. And thank you, Corinne. Thank you to the Humanities Festival, of course, and very exciting to hear what's going on in your city these days. So I'm going to do a range of things, open with a few more recent pieces and dip into the trilogy, the Iovis Trilogy. It's a little, this is the book. It's a little hard to read from, so excuse me if I'm using some pages here, but I need to have it close by. As was said, it's a 25-year project, kind of feminist project taking on war and patriarchy, because my whole life has been, as we all have seen these continuing wars. And a moment began, I think this book began when I was meeting my father for the first time, who had served in Germany. And there's a photo that's the frontispiece where I'm touching his uniform. And with, I think, a little bit of, I think I was inquiring, even at that early age of 9 months. But I note that as a luminous detail as to how this whole thing started, this meditation, and of course a lot of other things move through the poem. It's a weave of the story of our time, our tribe. My son is the Virgil for the poem. But I'll start with a couple of incantory pieces. And this is in tribute to my co-founder, Allen Ginsberg of the Kerouac School. Holy, 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 holy. Is the composite world holy? Holy phonemes, holy neurons, holy, holy the three senses, holy the aggregates of being, holy, 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 holy impermanence, holy the interconnectedness of all beings, holy praticit samutpada, holy, holy, karma of atrocities, holy and unholy. Unholy is 21st century endless continuation of 20th century war, holy environmental degradation, continuation of 20th century environmental degradation, holy every woman's a holy dakini, matriot acts holy, 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 holy. Body parts blown over the charnel ground, holy. Eyes, ears, nose, hands, mouth, holy. Manipulated Bible, holy. Quran, holy. Anarchist tracts, holy. Fatwa, holy. Geneva Convention, holy. Holy contract with America. Come on, citizens, is that holy? Star Wars rods from God, holy. Daisy cutters, holy. Thermobaric version of Hellfire missile that can turn corners and blast into caves, holy. Allen Ginsberg's mysterious rivers of tears under the sheets, holy, holy Kerouac's tender reward, holy, holy Baghdad, holy Dharamsala, holy Kabul, holy Israel, Palestine, holy Bosnia, holy Rwanda, holy Manhattan Isle, holy Trade Center, holy, holy, holy Bagram, holy Guantanamo, holy Abu Ghraib, holy all hooded torture, unholy, all bodily sadistic harm, unholy, all the hate, unholy, unholy. Holy pneumatic drills boring into depths of Brooklyn, holy old slave graves, else they are going to recruit centers, holy, holy, knocking on tenement doors, get a fresh martyr for holy, 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 Creeley, holy, Brackage, holy, Philip Lamantia, holy, Steve Lacy blowing his saxophone in heaven, stem cells holy, cloning holy, amphetamines holy, unholy the polarized universe, holy the unfettered universe, holy no ideas but in things, holy projectiverse, holy modal structures, banish grief and greed, oh compassionate green skin, savioress of the mind, holy Om Tara, Tara, Tori, Toris, Tara, Tori, Tori, holy, Tora, Tora, Soha, holy, holy, holy. And this next is well, you'll see, a response to one of the issues of our time. Over the hiding of shape of a bed, a tilling of fields. Start from a work of persons and rise up, not like a veil of unsanctified tears. A work in love is never unsanctified enigma, if not but pure flow and consent, or rip in the veil which is sanctuary for persons, be they same or other, as a waterfall never falling in the same sanctuary twice, an abode for our bodies of union of persons. Step up to the altar of ancestors together who were union, who were civil, who were convivial behind a veil. Step up, step it up, convivial, show them and rip the veil off the eyes of the enemies of veil. See it another way, declare the space to be an abode of bodies. See through the waterfall to them behind a veil that was protecting the face of others. Same face, same base, same trace, same pace, same grace, same lace, marriage. A civil veil, or it is my vow, my vowels and vocables to be this same which is never that same one in gender constructed eros, eros-faced marriage. We are never the same in same-sex love, but law is civil and protects the abode of bodies. Say it, law is civil, or rival is civic, is civilized, is civilians, is not chilling. Gone is the time of boundaries of veils, or tiers of borderlines of separating cascades of enigmas and hiddenness. Gone is that chilling time that does not witness the desire to be seen, to be witness of that union beyond a boundary, same or reciprocal or solidarity pacts. It is over, gone and done with it, that violent time. Over and gone and done with it, that violent over of hiding the shape of a bed, the shape of a clearing in a forest where you lie down, soft and mossy spot, and you might come together there, the ancient green moss and secluded spot you come to again, again, you of former hiddenness. And this was written for some of the Occupy events we were doing in New York City. So a lot of the inspiration, I think, for some of the young activists I know was what was going on with the Arab Spring, particularly in Egypt, which continues to be a very troubled area and situation. But I felt very inspired by the way that people were analyzing the economic disparities and other kinds of efforts, particularly with homeless people in the city, issues of rent issues, stabilization issues. It's, as we all know, been a hard time. So I took the beautiful song of Go Down Moses. It's called Prisons of Egypt. I'll try to sing it. The prisons of Egypt go back far to Joseph in the house of Potiphar. Check the papyrus, check the astrology, down the stair of time in a theocratic dynasty. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Death is before me today like the odor of myrrh, like sitting under a sail on a windy day. Death before me today like a hangman's noose in the torture chambers of Egypt. You rarely get loose. Al-Qaeda bred in the prisons of Egypt, nurturing hatred in the prisons of Egypt. CIA operatives in the prisons of Egypt, complicit waterboarding in the prisons of Egypt. Shackled and outraged by capitalism's jail, gagged and bound by the Federal Exchange alpha male. What will it take to get the mind stable? What will it take to get food on every table? Go down, Bloomberg, way down in New York land. Tell old Wall Street, let my people go. This verse is like luminous beads on a string, verse like the shifting sands with a scorpion's sting. Cries of people in the bowels of corruption, verses ululate those crying out in insurrection. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. We'll occupy Liberty Plazas beamed around the world, sleep on concrete, wake up on consecrated soil, while bones of slaves and workers and victims of war arise and haunt the 1%, the 1% spooked down to the core. Go down, Bloomberg, way down in New York land. Tell old Wall Street, let my people go. And this was a meditation in the Ghetto Vecchio in Venice. Maybe some of you have traveled there. The Jewish Quarter, which has a long history of kind of repression and gated community in a different way, going back to 1390. So you can see some images, paintings. There's a famous Canaletto of Venice's ghetto. And the word ghetto actually comes from the word for foundry, which is, of course, where arms were made and metal. So it's sitting in this site and just scribbling. And metal was cast in the dream of the ghetto, and metal was forged for cannons, 1390 in Ur and Pre, and nightmare of ghetto, and laboratory of ghetto, a metal mentality. For it takes a long arm, a long hatching this mentality of force, of problem not solving your ghetto, and in the name of decree, and forging a metal mentality, and harming arms where you can't live, and you have to live under a low ceiling where you can live, and problem not solving 5,000 in a crammed room. Undream it now, your nightmare, not allowed into the light of campos and canals. Not allowed, undream, problem not solving this nightmare of ghetto, or problem not solving your nightmare of ghetto, of time of this ghetto. You want to stretch your human fleshly arms outside the walls towards campos and canals. You want to stretch your rare fleshly arms out of here, reach out of harm's way towards campos and canals, but you can only live here in this curfew of time, this pre-time, before the dawn until Napoleon allows. You can live elsewhere. Oh, please step outside, please step aside, you say to Palestine, you who were in pre-dreamtime ghetto astride campos and canals. You are my problem, I am not your problem, and under Austrian rule, come back inside ghetto in this nightmare, 1797, this pre-dawn of state of arsenal of Palestine, old way back Palestine. What of its rip and tears, its tears and weeping, its ghetto? I mark this for you, I say this for you. Tears and more weeping, carved in stone, in metal of poem time, in scripture of 21st century wind time, and then the dream of a full-fledged, full-time arsenal. Tears and weeping toward metal. What do we do? What do we have to do? Why do we have to do airstrikes? Problem not solving. 13 dead again in ghetto Palestine, when then the arsenal of problem not solving is long-range rocket revenge toward Ashkelon. Ashkelon, 10 kilometers north of Gaza. Oh, remember Gaza, and then revenge in airstrikes. 13 dead in Gaza, ripped apart in Gaza, and the fine elliptical gallery for women only. Sit here, my dear, down, dead, decimated sister, my one next to me in this dream nightmare of ghetto and arsenal in Palestine. Describe the body parts you sifted from the trees, down from the scattered trees of Zion, of Palestine, the three wells of Zion, the scattered trees of Zion, the miracles and tribulations of Zion, of Palestine, the three ways to undream the problem. The dear dead body parts enter here the dream, the nightmare of ghetto, an end of ghetto, and say 3 times, I will not do to them what has been done to me. I will not do to them what has been done to me. I will not do to them what has been done to me. What to do as the merchant, stranger, Shakespeare, ghetto merchant works the Banco Rosso, real and tangible, or other side hits Sedrat with Grad rockets from Iran, hit with metal mentality, forged in metal, hit the word Sedrat, hit the word Grad, hit with harm, your problem not solving, scary alliances, 4 boys between 8 and 12, dear dead body parts east of Jabalia. Undream the dead, take back the word dead, not a jubilee, and more in Gaza, more and more in ghetto Gaza. This is the old held vision of unsolved Zion, and now the guards in the nightmare that is new centuries inventory of the state of arsenals and the unsolved, now more than divided Palestine, building of more arsenals and the arms that harm and reach out and harm human and fleshly. I will sit here and sound here and reach out arms human and fleshly to ghetto, to Gaza. So that comes in at the end of the trilogy, and also feeling, this unsolved problem in our, in our world. Just why does it just go on and on? So this, it comes out of this frustration, but also a meditation on, some of the history and the karma of that whole. So then this moves into, and I'll just do an excerpt of this, the hungry ghost, a morphology all by itself between our realms. Hungry ghost that dwells in consciousness that torments our desire. Sexy ghost, performer, demon, gadfly, to never have enough, be enough, get enough, never have enough, be enough, get enough, dancing on coals, in a state of mind unsatisfied, unsettled over what he thinks, she thinks, what they thinks, what the I thinks, hieroglyphs for the hungry ghost, unsatisfied, dancing on nails, jostled by waves, the real kind that pull you under, turbulent in a shadow realm between waking and sleeping, hungry ghost with scars in the sand, hewn characters in the mind, arms and legs that are brisk strokes of gestures in air and language, flailing about, writing with a skeletal stylus of the hungry ghost, sleeping with a hungry ghost who writes your book, hungry ghost, a film, a trail, a latent thought set down that won't let go, the watcher watching you in your hungry ghost fabrication, hungry ghost that is a blur between worlds, thrumming on filaments of desire, threads of desire constantly broken, strings plucked and snapped, the connection, the fix is in, the fix is in, the fix is in for the hungry ghost who sings in lamentation, singing to be a ghost and so very hungry. The fix is in, the fix is in. Attachment, which is a ghost of yearning, yearning for existence. The fix is in, yearning for sustenance. The fix is in. Hungry ghosts of the Jurassic, large omnivores startling you with appetite. Hungry ghosts, ancient in mind, continuity of mind of all, primordial hungry ghost. Ravaged and ravaging, ravaged and will have ravaged and will ravage, hues of glorious white light that pursue you everywhere, spotlight on your desire, hunger, hunger, then so bright or fierce you never rest. How can we ever feed your ravenous hounds? Hungry ghost, or radiant colors of seductive desire, elusive beauty adorning your tattered frame, worn to transient flickering, transmigrating through many lifetimes, hungry ghost, down and dirty on the street, shackled, body picked over on a street, in a distant street over there, other side of the hungry ghost world, people willing to die there, fighting the hungry ghost, despots, tyrants, mercenaries, fighting the denizens of the hungry ghost world, stars, atoms, molecules, names, family histories, all shackled, the Hooghly River right in front of you, your rivers in lockdown, bending over into the river of hungry ghost. Torturer can do anything he wants to. Maybe anyone can be bumped or busted. Brown paper bags over the head, torture and death. Wipe the mouth away, wipe the eyes away, wipe the ears away, wipe the long ago away. A better hand of death will guide you from this hungry ghost world. Gunned down on your own street, code of executioners light, exultant, the civvies turned on to torture, wild laughter getting their kicks in the hungry ghost realm. Set teeth to knuckles, set knuckles to knees, set fists to bloated belly, a muzzle snaps, the lights go out and they are trashing and thrashing, metal set to teeth, set teeth to neck, hungry ghost of blood-sucker's paradise, being sexy again in a broken world, chamber of greed and brutality. The ghost that will never rest is your own grasping mind, mannerisms of the thumbs up. A code of hungry ghost is your own mind, apprehension of the ghost, where next, locked doors, low light, agony going down the hallway, agony in the hit in the stomach, or worse, hungry ghost links memory to energy, atrocity, which is silence, migrations of hungry ghosts walking toward a diminishing hope, memory erased, women and children disappearing overnight, hungry ghost and empty verbiage, hungry ghost, sons disappeared, daughters disappeared, mothers disappeared, fathers disappeared. Hungry ghost, the seer will teach you how to be ghosted. Oh, it gets so heavy, this book. So I'm going to move to some bits from the Manatee Humanity project. And this, I think most of you have encountered manatee in your, at least in images, or maybe have even had encounters, swum with the manatee, or seen videos. They're an endangered species. They're very ancient order of being. They go back in time probably 40 million years, 60 million years to being land They were land and water, land again. Their nearest relative is the elephant. There's a wonderful naturalist heavenly museum in Paris, which is a whole museum of skeletons, and the manatee and elephant are next to one another, and they're all sort of facing forward, beautifully bleached white bones in this great movement, and it's a concert of aspiration. So this began with an actual manatee encounter in Florida, seeing a lone manatee very scarred from monofilament line and motorboat blades, this sort of thing, and but this amazing presence. I felt, actually we stared into each other's eyes a long time. I felt she had the greater sort of sympathy for me. I mean, I sometimes feel they're trying to tell us something, trying to help us. So the poem came out of that sort of a meditation, and I was involved with a Buddhist practice called the Kala Chakra, where there's a kind of central deity, and I started having the manatee be the deity in this ritual. What else to say? The word manatee comes from the Caribbean word, Manitou word. Manitou is the word meaning breast. The manatee have more gray matter in the brain than we do, and so on. So I'll just do a little part of this meditation. Again, it's a sort of long text, that kind of hybrid text that travels through different aspects of the Buddhist ritual, works with dreams. There's an introduction, concerning the notion of intensity of our experience, and our dramas of discursive thought and moods how they affect the mind that is also on. The poet Jack Spicer spoke of the mind, the poet's mind, or the mind being like a radio that's always on. So I sort of work with that image. All radios are not the same, though they receive and work the same way. In this view, there's no such thing as a universal mind in which minds all participate, but rather myriad unique individual pathways and innumerable possibilities. And then the poet Jack Spicer, one of his metaphors for the poet, again, is the radio. The poet is always on, and then the mind of the manatee was the question. What is the mind of the manatee? So this seemed something wonderfully cognizant and primordial and on in the manatee spirit as I experienced it. And I remember William Burroughs once talking about he loved cats, and he said that so many animals seem to be in samadhi, which is a Buddhist term for this sort of altered state of peace and consciousness. So I wanted to get closer to that energy. And then the notion of the Buddhist view is that all life forms are interrelated through their evolutionary history, and that animal and human minds are both participants in reality. We share the planet with many non-human temporalities. Minds exist at the quantum level, below the level of atoms and subatomic particles. As is said, minds never come from nothing or go to nothing. I visualize the manatee's realm in the shallow pool as a shrine. I received her less as a victim and more as a poetic deity. The manatee ostensibly has no use in our world. It's odd how creatures pacifistic, transcendent even, go extinct as human realms of cruelty, plunder, and war grind on. And the manatee was quite endangered by the BP oil spill. I don't know if you followed some of those accounts. The manatees found in shallow, slow-moving rivers. The manatee moves in estuaries, moves in saltwater bays. The manatee in moving moves gently. The manatee is to be found in canals and coastal areas. The manatee is a migratory animal. The manatee is gentle and slow-moving. The manatee moves in slow-moving rivers slowly. The manatee is completely herbivorous. The West Indian manatee has no natural enemies. The manatee has no natural enemies but unnatural man. The manatee is constantly threatened by man unnaturally. Man with his boats and plastic and attitude. The manatee often drowns in canal locks of man. Man who makes no concession to manatee. The manatee often dies in flood-controlled structures. Man who makes no concession to manatee, nor cares of manatee life, manatee fortune. The manatee dies in collision with watercraft. Man who does not protect the manatee. What steward of the earth is this unnatural man? Man who makes no concession to manatee. The manatee dies with the ingestion of fish hooks. Man who unnaturally makes no concession. The manatee dies from litter and monofilament lines. Man who is rank in attitude has no use for manatee. The manatee dies entrapped in crab trap lines. The manatee dies from loss of habitat claimed by man. The manatee is maimed by man. The manatee could be aided by man. Man, oh aid the manatee, come to the manatee heart. A manatee calf is born every 2 to 5 years. A manatee gestates for a year in the manatee womb. 8,400 miles of tidal waters could be for the manatee. 11,000 miles of rivers and streams could be for the manatee. 100,000 miles of canals, would they all be for the manatee? The manatee has more gray matter in the brain than man. The manatee is perhaps thinking archivally deeper than man. Ancient days of manatee, so many thousands of years. Manatee mind, what is the mind of manatee? The manatee has no natural enemies. The manatee is completely herbivorous. The metabolism of the manatee is slow, moves slowly. The manatee moves in estuaries, moves in saltwater bays. The manatee offspring nurses for up to 2 years. The manatee learns everything from the manatee mother. The manatee mothers and offspring sing to one another. The manatee have large ear bones. Chirps, whistles, squeaks of the manatee. The manatee is moving slowly, moves gently. Oscillations of the manatee moving between the manatee ears of the manatee mother and manatee offspring. Manatee are our sirenians and live in the house of the sirens. Where are the human sanctuaries for manatee? Manatees, mermaids, sirens sing, move slowly. The manatee mother and calf so bonded. Female manatee bonded with her just one manatee offspring. Now represent your representation in the symbolic code of language. Manatee, humanity, and run your hand along a restless spine. It was a time of fossil fuel priorities, of precious business time. That's what they'll say about us centuries hence. It was a busy, get on with it business time, so better get on with it time. They troubled us all over in their greedy, get over it time. That's what they'll say about us. What were they thinking? Stupid fuckers. It was commodification fun hog time. Time modification time. Got on with time. We killed time. What will we be saying then? Then in future time we'll be surely more stressed in time. That's what they'll be saying. That's what they'll say. They got on with it, saying about us going nowhere but going down and us all with them. What were they thinking in their selfish minds? Us. Us, us, that's what they'll say about us generations hence, how living then hence without so many animals then. They fuck the world over in their sweet, avaricious time frame. That's what they'll say about us, about us. They let the animals die, they let the plants die, they killed the air, they killed the water, they killed each other, they killed language. Humdrum Paleolithic, where we could talk in sweet time notches. Well, that's over. Where did that ever evolve to? Then along 20,000 years of keeping time once and keeping it for all and moving it, time forward, and it, the art forward, and it, humanity forward. And now they want to kill it. Really, they killed it. Then along rim of Babylonian, rim of Egyptian, 5,000 years once ago. Such progress, they kill all that too. Then, but now, my solar day, my lunar month, my solar year, my speed I inherited from them. What time is it now? And we resumed our talk after these excessive outbreaks, discussing the nature of calibration, how different times give the peculiarities and particulars of people and praxis and place and thought systems and become their own zones in this. We spoke of lustrations and the architectures of spiritual places, of constructing mandalas with colored sand and the women who dance on the precipice of eclipses, performance and ritual under arches, pillars that delineate the way to move as a chorus might. Open atriums, they are moving into the augur's space, a place of frequent animal sacrifice. We're mere sidereal time, 2 passages of mean sun time, and that is relative, both. Caution you further, it's quite unconscionably relative. That doesn't explain, I protested, the way we brutalize time. I need a bigger podium. That's good, but that's also a little claustrophobic. This is like when I teach, there's lots of scatter. They seal the falcon, this is all from the Manatee Project. They seal the falcon's eyes before setting them off. They tremble so. Without care, without seed pearl, without stitching close the eye of the falcon, without seemly rectitude, without the platitude of, oh, thou muddled media pundit, without unquestionable doubt or metabolism, without a geographic category of speech that will travail, without a hint or glint of secular mastery, without ritual framing of that which should be plural, could be axiomatic, and of many pistols made, without hiding, without all of them hiding in their small ways, paws tucked under, claws retracted, without measure and accountability, without a non-routine check of passports, pets allowed, and how deportees suffer the long reign of inhumanity, without your endurance of watching, always watching someone else go down. Humiliation, without the venom of humiliation, without contrapuntal structure, and without the singing lark of volume, modest, and zooplankton's glorious light that travels with you and for you many light years, without the temple of inscriptions, without the Paleocene of geologic time, without its placental mammals, without a man, a plan, a canal, might you remember Panama? Without the spurge laurel, without the aminos that haunt the system, without translunar spectrums beyond your familiar moons, and without the sinews you count on with their stretch and synaptic tug like lunar devices that carry you over, carry you above many moons. Without the demotic, how will you be in a version of demotic? Without a theatrical sense of illusion and banding about on or inside a thermosphere, without it working against you, and when it does, being able to go on without it, without gavots, without gazelles that you study in neighboring Persian poetries, without spallation and without a diving bell, how will you survive? Without rapacious wildcats, without the sense of security you have always expected with your familiar stage fright, without the caves, without the bombing of caves, without the mystery of caves, without the caves in your memory of that mystery that lives in caves, without caves that long to exist in the handprint in the cave of that memory that haunts your brain cavity or wolf cavity, cavity of whale, without the rivets that hold the mammal together, that hold the whole machine together, that assert the rivet dominion opinion lore, without which you do not have a plan of fastening together of ribs, of wings, of arms, or the automaton that holds the capital together without its own mind of wheels and cogs and moogers that run the show, without all the pixels and efforts of more dominion, without facticity, without facsimiles of intent of high technological information, without high-speed wonderment, without multiple star-crossed wonderment, without the wonder of discovery. You are warm, you are human, but maybe not so warm human. You are cold-blooded, remote, bold, predatory, without mercy to so many of them, those others, so many you never encounter, never see, without preemptive night, without predilection of night, without the restitution of night, without which you never recover, you never sleep, you never dream, you never heal, without night's netherworld ancestry, without its dark globe of survival held over you in eye's mind, in the heart's mind, in the eye of the falcon, in the eye of the manatee, of which you are no small part, without the enigmatic, the obscure, the tragic, the lone one, without magnetic poles, without the mass from an infinitely distant position to a designated point in a static electric magnetic magnetic or gravitational field, without the blush of betrayal, without the blush of dear aspiration, without credentials of what keeps you here, bound and chastened and bidden, without privilege, how will you manage? Without facing the other way from one another, without that being in agreement, facing, without opposable thumbs, without your vending, your selling of vendettas, without the animalized ones that live near you, live underneath you, inside, around, in legend, in dream, in story, in song, in extraordinary renditions of escape and survival, without borders to cross, without needing to carry things over borders, the invasion of your homeland, coming soon without it. What call in the night, what call is answered, what nuance, what tantrum in the night, what martyrdom of dreaming your own birth, your own end of history or end of speculation of that end, what call, what alarm is sounding deep in the home. Om Mani Padme Manati, Hum Mani Padme Manati, Hum Manati Padme, Hum Manati Padme Manati, Hum Manati, Hum. So I'm going to close with just a few moments of a video collaboration with a wonderful artist named Noah Satterstrom, who's based in, where's my timekeeper? So just a few images from his beautiful frieze. Again, a sort of warring theme, soldiering, dreams of wartime. And this is, we can just show it. It's not very dark in here, but just to give a sense of his paintings and some of the texture. And this was filmed in an exhibit in Arizona. There's just a little hum in the background. You're not supposed to hear it, so I'm going to read over it. Dick Cheney did not serve. Dennis Hastert did not serve. Tom DeLay did not serve. Roy Blunt did not serve. Mitch McConnell did not serve, did not serve, did not serve. Trent Lott did not serve. Rick Santorum did not serve. Jeb Bush did not serve. Karl Rove did not serve, did not serve, did not serve. Paul Wolfowitz did not serve. Richard Pearl did not serve. Elliot Abrams did not serve. Newt Gingrich did not serve, did not serve, did not serve. And George W. Bush failed to complete his 6-year National Guard, got assigned to Alabama so he could campaign for a family friend for U.S. Senate, failed to show up for a required medical exam, disappeared from duty, did not serve, did not serve. Rudy Giuliani did not serve. George Pataki did not serve. Spencer Abraham did not serve. Lindsey Graham did not serve. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, AWOL from Austrian Army base, did not serve, did not serve, not serve. Mitt Romney did not serve, did not serve, did not serve. And although he's our commander-in-chief, Obama did not serve, did not serve, did not serve. And Waldman did not serve, did not serve, did not serve. Soldiering. Soldiering. She wanted to soldier, needing some action for her arms. Lift up this heavy machine, your post-industrial. Hey, you, turn it. Turn the weapon the other way around toward the sky. She got on a plane, she got on a boat, got on a convoy, joining others. Start again, got on a convoy, got on a scooter, she got on a bike, she walked, she got on a train, she got in a Humvee, soldiering. She walked, she joined others, walking, tracking, obeying with other bodies. Hey, you, write your name here, I can't read you. Apparatus is a tough assignment, can't read you. You're either in or off the mark, above or below the mark. It is a non-human agency apparatus. A non-human gesture is an apparatus. She wanted to soldier, to embrace apparatus, or so she thought, but others who saw differently might convince you of a different approach. Look there, a sunset. Different approach. Different approach. Hopes pinned to the uniform. What is a desire to enter a path like soldiering feel like? Not arbitrary necessity at the gate. All the itties come charging in. Beyond automatic, because an apparatus obeys a system. She dreamed about some cultural objects after she went out, after she traveled on all those vehicles, after she went out, after she joined up, because remember, she was now not merely out, but out once, and it was time to sleep and dream and get up at dawn and inhabit a new site. About artifacts, old farm implements from the 18th century, like that, or a talisman from a sweat lodge. What do you say, a pleasant scent or odor in the theater of war you imagine? Unlikely. But that's the point of fact. Who thinks it? Cultural artifacts of her own tangible apparatus generation. They like things, scratch, images, rushed camping gear, a face of a post-Holocaust philosopher, or rather the observations of a post-Holocaust survivor in the 21st century. You know what I'm saying? She was not merely out, but out. There is a difference. Out. Tell your story of soldiering. She wanted to soldier. There was a crime scene, and I do not want to hear about it. Don't want to hear about it. Killing is a crime. Say, nows. Say as abandoning. Say as a thing, the abandon, a she that could love and be loved and free of the heavy objects in the way. Cultural objects were tantalizing and fluid. War trophies are fluid. Wanted to soldier. Apparatus is a rocket to death. Apparatus is a rocket to death. She was resting. She rested now. So, thank you. Thank you. And there's a little time for a few questions. Yes, so any questions or comments? I'm still working with the wonderful Kerouac School that was mentioned, and so spend some of the year in Colorado, and we're entering, it'll be our 40th anniversary soon. There's some people in the audience here who are students, so it's great to see them carrying on the great work. Chicago, yes?
Would you repeat the name of the artist, please? I didn't recognize.
Noah Saterstrom, Saterstrom, based in Arizona at the moment.
Would you talk about some of your work around women?
Well, you mean the poetry itself or just the activism work? Both. It's endless. I think, just including women in the projects and continuing, strong supportive relationships with people who are trying to sort of make a difference in the art worlds. I just met a wonderful student. She's on a fellowship. She went to Yale, but she's on some sort of fellowship working out of an art center in Harlem, and she's completely in love with the paintings of Philip Guston. I thought that was so interesting for young. So we were, because I knew him a little bit, I was able to talk to her and sort of, that sense of passing things on, transmission of people who've been so important in my cultural life that can, are in danger of getting buried some ways. And I remember Robert Creeley speaking of his work being done around the poetry of Lorene Niedecker and how it took certain individuals to really do the research, uncover it, make sure it got back out into the world. And I was just in Gloucester, and there's a lot of support now, finally, of Charles Olson's legacy there. In Europa, we have this huge archive that includes vast numbers of readings and teachings and lectures, and the particular women, for example, the wonderful poet Akilah Oliver, who died 2 years ago, under 50, had a long connection to the school and to teaching there as well. And her own work is so important to many of us, and it's being held up by the state, because if you die in New York City alone, it's considered a crime scene, and they seize your computer and your paper. I mean, it's complicated. And then the work of my friend, colleague, Amiel Alkali. We do something called Poetry is News together, and he's very involved at CUNY with projects where students are going out and to libraries and archives and retrieving material, finding, manuscripts, finding old correspondences. Some wonderful things coming up. There's, some of Diane DePrima's work that hasn't been seen, Muriel Rukeyser, among others. So I guess I'm in that, the reclamation. It seems very important to me while I still have a little time to, make sure some things are, we do what we can to continue them on in Gertrude Stein's continuous present. So I don't know if that answers. I mean, there are all kinds of issues around equal pay and rights and dynamics of workplaces and relationships and that sort of thing as well. And I think, the Iovis project, this epic, is really a feminist project. I mean, it was this need to take on the, the subject of epics, which is generally war, and there's a whole section where I'm mad at Pindar. You're glorifying men at war, oh, Pindar, and I'm going to, reclaim it. It has a lot of Latin words for various weapons that they used back then, and it, goes through a lot of different times and places. But the point being, I wanted to challenge the deeds of the state, the patriarch, et cetera, through, a kind of female rage that can also be a lullaby, and also examine my own, aggression and, that kind. I don't want to say it's male energy, but, kind of when one gets warlike, and also to investigate the some of the, well, even calling out the names of weaponry, and seeing the sort of the way language is often subverted, and we have all these euphemisms for the kinds of things that go on that can be very. I also write some cheerful, loving things. I have a whole book of lullabies for my child, love poems. Yeah.
So could you tell more about this Kerouac Center that you found with
Founded the school?
with Allen Ginsberg?
Yeah, well, it's part of the Naropa University. Naropa was a pundit, an Indian pundit of the 11th century, an abbot of a very important educational institution called Nalanda University, and one of the founders in the Tibetan lineage. And the school was inspired by Tibetan Buddhist ideas. And in the early years, we had, many Zen practitioners, Native American practitioners. And the view was a non-aggressive education, non-competitive. And Allen Ginsberg and I went out the very first summer in 1974, and we had a meeting with some of the other people who were interested in this project. We were never an English department. We didn't build a creative writing program out of an English department. It was really a poetics department with living writers. And of course, Ginsberg taught there many years. And at that first meeting, actually, John Cage was visiting, and Cage was at that initial meeting. Diane DePrima was also one of the early founders and voices of the, whatever it was going to be. There was always this John Ashbery line, the Academy of the Future is opening its doors to us. It's still opening, we're still trying to keep it open. I mean, it's a real roller coaster to be a small, independent, Buddhist-inspired school with the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetry. I mean, that, people wonder about that. For what does that mean? And I have to, explain we didn't have a building. We had an idea. We didn't have a desk and a phone and stationery and money, and so it was disembodied. And we also wanted to honor many writers who were no longer, with us. And of course, Allen taught Blake, for example, and so that sense of the voices and Todd McCarty, who's here, worked, and others here worked in the archive at Naropa for a number of years. And, it starts to grow in you, these disembodied voices. I mean, the voices take body, of course, but, that's also an image for me. And then there's the notion of projective verse that comes from Charles Olson, but the idea of projecting out and projecting your voice and making, putting poetry into public space. And now we have some, technologies to continue that. So my vision is you'll all get a copy of the archive. It'll be in a little chip. You just insert it behind your ear, and then you can dial up, all kinds of wonderful poetry. But the school goes on. We have an MFA degree, a BA program. There are other departments, a whole range of from ecology to therapy programs to Buddhist psychology. And it's available. It's a secular school, but with these, underpinnings. Yeah?
How did you become involved with Buddhism?
A very, kind of an early age. I think I saw an image. I went to a Quaker high school, and I had a wonderful religion teacher, Dr. Earl Hunter, and he taught, Taoism, Hinduism, Buddhism. We had a textbook in comparative religion class. I think it was my last year in high school. And it was, there was something also, the Quaker tradition, and we would sit, and meditate you would sit for an hour often that was sort of part of the schedule, and a few moments every day. And I sort of liked the idea of just spaciousness and not a lot of dogma coming in. So there was some, and then I was interested in the arts of India and other places, the music, the weaving, the sculpture, and started traveling to India rather regularly. But also Hindu, sculpture and practice, and of course so much is built. Buddhism they're very syncretic, these old traditions. And I think the view of, there was something in these various lineages from certainly the transcendentalists, and it wasn't alien to, our American experience and kind of investigating mind, looking at how we things come up and they disappear. Where do they go? How do we fixate? So on. And then I was very curious, the descriptions of mind and the things like the six realms, the animal realm and the hungry ghost realm, which is where that text came from, and the hungry ghost, and you're sort of working up this chain, the human realm, and in the human realm, the idea is you have the most possibility of communication. And then you move into the God realms, and so you have the warring God realms, which is where I've been for a long time. Warring God realms. I got to get back. And then I did the animal realm with manatee. I'm ready to come back to the human. Anyway, there's the warring God realm, and then there's sort of blissed out gods who, it's like the Lotus Land, Hollywood, people with a lot of time in their hands and to just have fun and pleasure and so on. Not doing the work. And one of our, there's a great line from one of Allen Ginsberg's poems. And while I'm here, I'll do the work. And what's the work? To ease the pain of living. Everything else, drunken dumb show. So it's kind of in that spirit. Yeah, someone else. So the project, and there was also a strong activist end. I mean, I was always curious that Allen came back from India with mantra, which he used as a political strategy. So you'd go and chant at the Chicago, I was here for the Chicago trials, not the convention, but I came to the trials and saw, Bobby Seale being tethered and so on, and Judge Hoffman. It was like theater. It was like some medieval play. So, but we were outside doing mantras, and Allen had an idea that you could levitate the Pentagon with mantra. But that was interesting to me, that coming from a more pacifistic philosophy and religion, that you would come in with mantra as an activist device, to wake people up and bring attention to.
I love the fact that you bring poetry and the political together in the way that you do. And I'm wondering, it sounds like you've been doing a lot of traveling, if there are artists that you have come across recently, dealing with current political issues whose work you particularly love or want to talk about a little bit.
Right, well, there's a lot of younger people working with environmental I think of Eleni Siklianos, I think of Brenda Gima, I think of Marcella Duran. These are all women in their probably 40s, and some are mothers already and have, a deep connection to sort of investigative poetics rather than just naming the things in nature, just, really finding out more about their order of being. I mean, I've been predicting it's all going to be about the slime molds. So I'm, thinking about slime mold poetics. What is that going to sound like? A lot of, blops and mucusy noises and so on. Anyway, they're very important, the slime molds. I'm just joking. But anyway, people who are doing working on behalf of the environment as well, and making that, you have to pick your causes and so on. So their work, Jonathan Skinner's also involved. There have been some anthologies connected, throughout the country. I think some of these sort of ideas are traveling. There's a project in Colorado where everybody's invited to take on a species and write about it and do some investigative work, and then it'll all come together in a book. There's much more. We can talk later. Time. Okay, thank you very, very much for your attention, and so honored to be here. Thank you.